my hopes are with some of the pieces they've added with the draft and possibly some undrafted guys that come into camp, that we can stay healthy this year, that we can play good football and get back to the playoffs. I mean, I think that's the ultimate goal here. I mean, Lamar Jackson's now 30. Is he 30 or 31? I can't remember. But, the window's starting to close a little bit. And I think the time is now with a new head coach, a new regime, if you will, and, some new opportunities.
Roger? Yeah, you were talking about, Doug, about the injuries on the Orioles, and I was following them because I really thought that this year they would come out of the chute and really get on track. But when you get the injuries that they had last year, this year, it's very difficult if you're not that deep. But what do you? I mean, there's only so much you can do unless you start making deals. I mean, and they wait till the trade deadline. But I'm anxious to talk to you fellows about and hear about your opinion about the PGA, because it's a big deal in the Philadelphia area, and a lot of people are talking about it. And
Newtown Square, Roger, Newtown Square.
I've been by there on 252 many times. Well, go ahead. I'm waiting to hear all of you. You two golf experts.
Well, I'll let Doug talk about that one first, and then we'll go back to Mike. Go ahead, Doug.
Well, I mean, I think.
Have you played there?
I've never played there. There's been some really good golf courses in the Philly area that I have played.
Are you going up, Doug? Are you, because your car gets you in?
Yeah, that would be nice. I mean, it's timing for me is the hard part. I'm obviously getting into the weeds, if you will, with regard to my schedule and longer days and hopefully more lessons and busier and blah blah blah. In addition to that, we've got typically every Saturday and Sunday. Here is filled with travel baseball games that we have at least one, if not two, sometimes three games in a day. And Frank knows all about being a baseball dad and coach, sport, like whatever. It doesn't ever stop. We're getting ready to, flag football sign-up starts probably in, July, so we're not terribly far from the next step. We're headed to Cooperstown to play in that tournament, baseball tournament, first week in July. So, there's just a lot of things going on here. And, it's hard enough for me to watch the dang tournament on TV, let alone say I'm going to go, be there in person. You know what I mean? There's Thursdays, Fridays, and Sundays are typically pretty busy days for me on the lesson tee. And then, Saturdays at some baseball diamond somewhere. So, but yeah, it's, the PGA Championship, unfortunately, is probably the lesser known of the four majors. But as a PGA professional, I think it means, a lot for me to be able to watch that. And, whoever hoists that trophy, I think it's important to our organization. The field, this is the only field that includes actual PGA professionals that are, club professionals that get the opportunity to qualify and play in this. So that's a pretty big deal. I think a lot of the discussion has been thus far, you've heard a lot about Jordan Spieth. If he wins this PGA Championship, he would then solidify his career Grand Slam of all four. Justin Rose has played particularly well, winning the U.S. Open at Marion. Some other guys that I think are probably in the hunt there with guys we're talking about, Matthew Fitzpatrick. I think Ricky Fowler's played particularly well. Cameron Young's obviously played well in his last several starts. So, everything now, is about betting lines and, have all these different ways for people to, go online and place their wagers and parlays and all these different things. So, a lot going on there, but I think Aronimink is a great venue for this. I think in 2030, you'll see this event at Congressional Country Club, which is obviously a pretty big deal, not being terribly far from some of the places I teach. That might be one that we go to, given that opportunity. But yeah, look forward to seeing who can play 4 days of good golf on those greens.
Mike, what about the Washington, Baltimore area as well? Of course, Doug living right there too, outside of the world of soccer. How about football and/or are you into the golf? Are you into the PGA?
Listen, I took up golf, and I've talked to Doug a lot about this. In fact, I was playing one of our local club courses around here, not far northeast, which is not far from here. I mean, it's a PGA qualifying course. And I went out, and I was doing great. I had a 65, and then I went to the second hole.
That sounds like me. Mike, the last game I played was after the 2008 Mike Smith's first season with the Falcons. I embarrassed myself. I've never been on a golf course since.
I do enjoy golf. I'm not as much into it as Doug is. I just know that they don't tend to build golf courses in ugly places. That being said, the biggest news, I guess, in the region, the southern part of DC, is the fact that the Wizards won the draft lottery, and for the first time in I think 12 years. And it's given Wizards fans who have not had much to look forward to for the past generation or more a chance to get a little bit excited about this team and the possibilities. The last time championship won more than 50 games in a season, Michael Jackson was still singing in 5. So that was where they last
Well, I'll tell you, it's an interesting weekend. We've got tremendous golf going on this weekend in Newtown Square. And I'm looking forward, and one of the things that, the possibility of a second Grand Slam, and I don't know that Jordan's going to be able to do it. He played well last week, but he's been very spotty up and down, Doug, and but he had a great run last week, but didn't quite get there. But yet, if he was to win the PGA, that would be another player to make all 4. That'd be really something special.
Yeah, no, it's a hard thing to do, and I think these certain players go through these spells where Brooks Koepka won it 2 years in a row, and Rory's a 2-time champion, and obviously Tiger Woods won it multiple times, Jack Nicklaus, so it's a pretty big deal. Let's also not forget, I think this Saturday is also the Preakness. So there's a ton of stuff going on with, playoff hockey, playoff NBA. You've got, roughly a quarter of the baseball season that's been completed. You've already, had
Doug, let me interrupt you right there for a second, because it's the first time that they've written as consistently over the last 4 or 5 days. Yeah. The Preakness is going to be a race where anybody can win. The fact that there's not going to be a Triple Crown again this year, and the fact that none of the races other than the Kentucky Derby would have been at the normal tracks anyway. I mean, the Belmont's not going to be at Belmont. It's going to be as was last year up at Saratoga. Baltimore's not going to be at Pimlico because they're remodeling that. And by the way, how's that coming along, and your thoughts on the race?
Yeah, no, I was pretty jacked up to watch the Kentucky Derby. I do believe that there's way too many horses in there. I was all over the 6th horse, and I had him in several exotic bets that, Renegade was clearly the best horse in the field, but he drew a tough close position and won, but he still finished second. I think
Two brothers. How about that? 2 brothers run 1-2.
Yeah, the Commandment was the one that I was looking at as the 6th horse, and he just got boxed in because there was way too many horses as he was coming down the stretch. He was starting to make his move, and I think he just got hemmed into, several horses and couldn't get past them. And then, when's the last time you can say, like, in American racing, horses don't typically go 5 wide? But that, the horse that won had to do that and, came up on the outside, and, the 3rd place horse was 70-1, so that was a huge trifecta if you had, but I can't imagine anybody would have had that unless they clicked the all button for third place. But
I didn't see anything written about it. I saw the numbers, but I didn't see them say anything about anybody winning it.
I can't imagine that anybody would have had that. But that horse, Ocelli or whatever, he was weighted, like he was out of the gate at 20 something, you know what I mean, in the gate. And, I think he was like an also, because a lot of these trainers will have multiple horses and, they just enter their barn basically and say, okay, well, we're going to put these two horses in. And what happens is like maybe one of them's a speed horse or whatever, and they set the pace of, his other horse can then do whatever. And I mean, I think if you look at the Preakness, what are there, 2 horses, maybe 3 that even ran in the Derby?
Yeah.
I think Ocelli's one of them, and I think there's at least one more. But, I mean, it's a different track. So, I mean, like what will standard play at Preakness for how you train versus what's happening here is way different. And, I mean, any horse can win. And I think they're going to continue to reevaluate the time frame in between, Kentucky Derby and Preakness, because obviously that's why you're seeing the horse that ran first in the Derby not running this, because they want to skip it and go to the Belmont because of the safety of the horse. I get it.
One other thing before we jump back to Mike, and that is when Pimlico, it was always tight turns. And, if you got up in the front, and of course, it's a much shorter field, you have to worry about 20. You didn't have to worry about coming out of 20 starting dates, but usually 8 or 9. And the turns were so narrow. How about where they're running this year? I'm not that familiar with that track.
I can't say that I've been to Laurel. I mean, I obviously went to Pimlico. I've been to Charlestown. I've been to, is it Bowie or whatever, where they have the trotters or whatever. That's dumb anyway. Those horses, it's like you're sitting in the saddle, like it's dumb. But thoroughbred wise, I've never been to Laurel.
Mike, are you a horseman too?
I've watched. I will. Laurel is to Pimlico like Saratoga is to Belmont. They're just not the same.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, it's such a.
You're gonna have a much different race at Laurel than you are at Pimlico, and it's the same. Oddly, though, it's the same ownership group there, and I'm concerned because they have been trying to get this race to move from Pimlico, which is in inner Baltimore, not necessarily in the greatest area of inner Baltimore, to Laurel, which is in a much nicer area of the suburban DC. So I'm hoping that it really is a case of they're remodeling Pimlico because Baltimore did sink a lot of money into doing that to keep primarily the Preakness there. That this is a case of they're remodeling it, not trying to, it's been here a couple of years, it's been successful, let's just keep it here permanently.
Doug, how are they doing with that? Because it's going to be another couple of years before it's ready to really go. But they're spending a lot of money on it for something that they were going to tear down.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was very much needed. As Mike mentioned, it's really in a terrible neighborhood. I think we were the laughing stock of the 3 crown jewels of horse racing because of the area it was in and the people that attended that had way too much to drink come camera time. You look at the Kentucky Derby with mint juleps and people all dressed up, and you look at the Preakness and you have people doing spot pot runs and just what I mean, like weird stuff that they do. It's the truth. I mean, they always interview some dude on there that has like 4 teeth and whatever, and it's just not a good look. And I think to answer your question, not a whole lot that I've seen has been even publicized about this. And you have to remember, how many years ago was it that Francis Scott Key Bridge fell? It still hasn't been constructed. So, I mean, how long does it? I mean, they've been working on 695 for 35 years. It's still, so I mean, Maryland isn't famous for their due diligence with regard to getting these things done.
Well, let me go, Joe. Let me just check with our director, Roger, and then we'll come back. See about how far he wants to go, how much longer he'd like to go, because whatever he wants is okay with me.
It's fine with me. Let's just keep on going.
Okay, go ahead, Rod. We'll keep going then until Frank tells us get out.
Okay.
Doug, talking about the bridge, I just saw the lawsuit. I guess corruption and everything else, right?
Yeah.
What is it, like 1.3 billion or more about this?
Well,
Go ahead.
it's been a bleep show, back and forth because, I think Governor Wes Moore is a very amiable guy. I think he loves the Orioles. He loves the Ravens. He's a very well-spoken guy. I think he's a very popular guy, but I don't know how far out of depth he is with regard to running the state of Maryland as our governor. I don't know what he knows or doesn't. I know that, we've always been a highly taxed state. I know that he burnt through an awful lot of surplus with regard to how he was running certain things. Him and President Trump got in a PP match going back and forth about funding and different things. And, it's just been this tug of war, listening to they had the contractor in place and then something happened, misquoted and whatever, It's just that bridge meant an awful lot to an awful lot of people that commuted, that used it, that now have to drive several minutes or hours out of their way to circumvent that. And there just doesn't seem to be this, feeling, if you will, that we need to get this done, and it has to be in a timely fashion. We're too busy, slinging the political stuff back and forth to get our way, I guess. The energy prices in the state of Maryland are through the roof right now. They're talking about data centers and all these different, concepts. So, it's just, Maryland is not a great state to live in. It really isn't, as much as we're taxed and all the things that happen.
Mike, let's go back to you because the political scene has been one of your areas as well because the new stadium, and every time you say yes, it's been approved, but let's wait to see what they actually do. I keep saying it's approved, it's approved, it's approved, and then sometimes it's not approved.
We're getting closer to it, and we're getting closer. We started to break ground. We're now moving from just the will they, won't they up to transportation. Metro announcing that they will not actually build a new metro station, or even they won't build a new metro station there. They're not really going to do a whole lot of work to the existing ones. They're just going to run a special gold bus line from the stadium to the metro station. Now, I'm guessing that means that the new stadium is not going to be exactly on the same site as the old RFK, because I've taken Metro to plenty of events at old RFK, and it was perfectly easy to get to. It wasn't that far with a walk. It is a issue because they've done the renderings of the parking garages, and they're only going to have about 8,000 parking spots for the stadium, and now they're also trying to figure out how they can handle tailgating, which is an issue because they, according to the team, they understand that tailgating is an important part of the game day experience for many fans, and they're working diligently to find a solution that will allow people to engage in their favorite game day traditions. Basically what they're saying is, we don't want you to actually tailgate. We want you to go to bars and stuff that are around the stadium that we're building because that we get the money. Every time you have a drink or anything, time you have a bite of food that you brought, that's dollars out of our pocket.
Roger? Yeah. Let me tell you an interesting aspect at the Stripers games on concession. The people that are running it for the organization, the Mill Creek High School band parents, which is great. They do a great job. You do not get a drink with a cap on it. And I'm serious. I believe it or not, you cannot get a cap for your drinks. And I don't know whether they're afraid that people would start sailing them or what. But I'm going with my friends, Don knows them, Roger Gibson tomorrow night. We're going to And what I said to him is, I'm going to bring in a couple of caps for that size drink, or like a medium drink. Because when you are going from the concession stand to your seat, okay, even though we're probably not have to go down any steps, it's a long walk. And anything can happen if somebody hits you. You can picture that. But I have no idea. And I talked to a woman from the band parents, and she has no idea why they.
Where do they come with these ideas? Where do they come up with this?
I don't know, Don. I do not know. It's absolutely a joke. Absolutely. But, I think that I can understand that Metro doesn't want to upgrade. To me, it's a mistake not to. I will tell you that they had the old Franklin Square, and you probably have seen it if you ever take